and welcome to A Knife's Edge. Today we're going to be making a little bit of pita. Step 1, our yeast. Now it's always important to make sure that we have proof that this yeast is actually alive. So we're going to go ahead and feed it. We're going to feed it two things, sugar and flour. These are both carbohydrates, but the sugar is a much simpler carbohydrate, and it's going to feed the little yeasty beasties much sooner so that they'll get growing and multiplying and being fruitful. That way, when we add the rest of the flour, it'll rise as we want it. So we're going to start with the slurry because it's much easier for them to grow in a nice warm, wet environment. So we've mixed our sugar, our yeast, and half a cup of flour together, and we've got warm water. You want it to be about body temperature because that's the best temperature for the yeast. Go ahead and mix it all together so you don't have big lumps. And we're just going to go ahead and cover that and let that sit for a good 15 or 20 minutes just to make sure that we have proof the yeast are alive. So voila. It's a little bit hard to see, but there are a bunch of bubbles, kind of like a very thin pancake batter, and that's what we want. So now we're going to add our salt and our olive oil. These are both somewhat detrimental to the yeast as they begin to wake up, so that's why I'm adding it later in the process. It should be noted that you can use whichever sort of olive oil you would like, robust or mild, personal preference. We're going to go ahead and mix so we get the salt mixed through. We don't want any lumps of saltiness. We'll add some flour. Now we've reserved a certain amount of flour as bench flour. It's always easier to add more flour and subtract. So you're going to want a shaggy ball. So you can see I've got that so that it's mostly come together. It's still very, very moist overall, but that's all right. I'm going to take a little of the flour and dust the board just like so. All right. Now we'll turn out the dough onto our floured board. I'm going to add just a little bit more flour on top. This batch was particularly moist. Go ahead and start kneading in this. Now if the dough starts failing to take on some of the flour on the board, just set aside, brush aside the extra, and continue to knead. You're going to want to knead about 5 to 10 minutes. You could also very easily do this in a stand mixer. I kind of like the feel of this in my hands. So as you can see, a little more flour, still a little moist. It should have a smooth, elastic feel. If you've got children or a lot of cousins and you've changed some diapers, it should feel sort of like a baby's bum. So that'll give you a concept of exactly how much to knead your dough. You can see it's still a little bit moist, but this is pita, and so that is just fine. So now that we've formed up our ball, nice and smooth, relatively firm, put a little bit of olive oil into the bowl so it doesn't stick, and then we're going to just add the dough right to it. Feel it up, get all of the little bits as much as possible. On one side, let's flip then. We're going to set this aside to rise, to proof, give us proof that the yeast is still alive. Check on that in about half an hour. Hopefully it will have doubled in size. And there we have it. You can see it's doubled in size. So we're going to go ahead, flour our board again, and then turn out our dough. I am not too concerned about punching down the dough at this point. The process will take care of that for us. The more important thing is that you divide this relatively equally. I do this visually and then go back and double check the weight. I'm cutting this into 6 because I think that's going to be about right for what we want today. If you wanted smaller, you could go 8. Also, I do this just by feel. I've done this a lot, so it might be easier if you get a scale just so you can get things roughly equivalent. Now that these are all about the same, add a little bit to this one. Yeah, there we are. We're going to make little balls, just like so. Nice round little balls. Just repeat this process. Now you can see why I was not too concerned with punching the dough down. All this working this dough will cause that to get rid of the extra large bubbles that we don't want right at this exact moment. Now that we've rinsed and repeated 6 times, we're going to actually then flatten this. I like to do a sort of hand pizza technique. You can also do a more French rolling pin technique. I just like the feel of dough. I've said it before and I'll probably say it again. Now you can see I'm letting the weight of the dough work, stretching, being gentle. You don't want to force things. Anytime you try to force things too much in a kitchen, something goes wrong. Getting it nice and flat, relatively even. Making sure I don't tear a hole in the middle. And then when this is about the thickness I want it, which is going to be somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick, I'll set it aside and start the next one. We're going to let these go through a secondary rise. That'll help get the yeast going again. And we'll do a nice pita with a fluffy, hollow center like we want. So we've given those an opportunity to rise again. Now, did you preheat your oven to 450? You should preheat your oven to 450. I like to put something that will hold thermal mass. I've got a nice piece of ceramic. You can do a pizza stone, cast iron, but it's important that it's in there and preheated with the oven. You let the oven preheat for a good amount of time, so that way the oven temperature doesn't drop too much when you open the door. You can see this puffs up relatively quickly, so don't go too far. Otherwise, you'll have burnt on one side, raw on the other. And go ahead and flip those. I might suggest that most people use like tongs or something to turn it because your hands aren't going to be quite as tough as mine. And there you have it. That's fresh pita. Nothing quite like it. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's anything you want us to do in the future. Till then, thanks for joining.